My name's Luke. I'm 32 years old, single, no kids, decent job, and for better or worse, I'm the guy in the family who has his life together. That's not to say I'm rich or anything. I work in project management for a mid-sized tech company, make enough to be comfortable, and I've always been the type who plans ahead, budgets wisely, and tries to make the people around me feel valued. Maybe that's why this whole thing hit me so hard. You give and give, thinking your family will appreciate it, that they'll respect your efforts, that they won't take advantage of you. And then one day, you get a text that makes you realize you were never seen as family, just a wallet. I should have seen it coming, honestly. My family's never been normal, but growing up, I just thought it was quirky. My mom, bless her heart, is the type of woman who believes keeping the peace is more important than standing up for what's right. She's warm, loving, and has never once missed a birthday or holiday. But she avoids confrontation like it's the plague. Then there's Josh, my older brother by 4 years, who's always been the golden child. The charming one. The one who could crash mom's car, lie about it, and still get dessert. He's got that kind of effortless charisma that makes people forgive him before they even realize he did something wrong. My mom has always seen him as her first miracle, and when he got married to Emily 8 years ago, it was like the two of them became royalty in her eyes. I always got along with Emily, or at least I thought I did, until things got complicated. But we'll get there. Now, I don't want to paint myself as some kind of martyr. I've had my moments of stubbornness, but I genuinely try to do right by people, especially my family. And for Mom's 60th birthday, I wanted to do something special. Not just a cake and card. I mean really special. A cruise. A whole luxury family cruise through the Caribbean, with excursions, spa days, beach time, and everything handled. I'd been planning it for 6 months. Saving, coordinating flights, talking to a travel agent. Heck, I even got everyone matching luggage tags with our names engraved. That's the kind of guy I am. I live for the details. There were going to be 10 of us in total. Me, Mom, Josh and Emily, my younger cousin Bella and her girlfriend, Uncle Ron and Aunt Maggie, and Grandma Jean. I booked 5 double-occupancy cabins, all with ocean views, and I covered the full cost. $8,700 out of my own pocket. No one else needed to pay a dime. It was a surprise gift for Mom, who's always dreamed of traveling but never had the means to do it herself. I told her I wanted to celebrate her life the right way, and she actually cried when I gave her the itinerary in this little envelope I decorated with glitter and cruise stickers. She said it was the nicest thing anyone had ever done for her. But even then, I noticed something strange. Josh barely reacted. He looked over the itinerary like it was a grocery list, mumbled "cool," and handed it to Emily, who smiled and said, "Looks nice," before going back to scrolling on her phone. It wasn't the response I expected, but I chalked it up to them being busy. Josh has always had this way of acting unimpressed with things unless he's the one who planned them. The weeks leading up to the trip were a whirlwind of logistics. Flights were booked, confirmations printed, passports double-checked. I even arranged for a limo to take us all from the hotel to the port. Every now and then, I get a text from a family member asking about room numbers or activities, and I handled it all. I didn't mind. I liked being the guy who made it happen. It felt good knowing everyone would have a great time because I'd thought ahead. That's what made the text I got 3 days before the cruise so jarring. It was from Emily. No greeting. No punctuation. Just, "Hey, hope this is okay. We moved some stuff around. Gave your cabin to Josh's new wife. She deserves it more." I stared at the screen, confused. What new wife? And then I remembered. Emily and Josh had split up 3 months ago. Quietly, without drama. Emily had moved out, but we hadn't heard much about it, and Josh hadn't mentioned anything beyond, "We're taking a break." I figured it was one of those things couples go through. But I guess Josh had moved on. Fast. I replied, "Josh's new wife?" And she wrote back, "Yeah, lol, they got married last week. Anyway, she's not great with boats, so she needed the nicer room. Thanks for understanding." The nicer room. The room I had booked for myself because I have back issues and needed the extra space. The room I paid for like every other cabin. And without even asking me, they just gave it away. I sat on my couch, stunned. My mind spinning. Then my phone buzzed again. This time from Josh. "Hey man, hope this is cool. Appreciate you being flexible. Not thanks. Not we'll make it up to you. Not even an apology. Just hope this is cool." Like I was some afterthought in my own plan. Like this wasn't the trip I organized. I didn't even know this woman's name. His new wife. She wasn't family. She hadn't been there when I was up till 3 a.m. sorting out seat assignments and medical forms. But now she was being given my cabin like I was supposed to smile and say, "Sure thing, bro." I stared at my phone, trying to process what was happening. My heart thumped harder in my chest than it should have. I felt hot, then cold. A tight knot formed in my stomach. I thought about all the months I'd spent planning this trip, all the little things I did to make it perfect, and how easily it was being brushed aside. I was furious, but not just at them. At myself, for thinking this would be different. I typed back, "Okay, smiley face." That's all I said. Just 2 words and a smile. But my mind was already racing. I wasn't going to fight them over text. I wasn't going to argue or plead for my room back. No, I was going to handle this my way. Because if they thought taking my cabin was the worst thing they could do to me, they were about to find out what I could do when pushed too far. And trust me, that was just the beginning. I didn't sleep that night. I lay there in bed, staring at the ceiling, thoughts ricocheting around my skull like shrapnel. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that text again. "We gave your cabin to Josh's new wife. She deserves it more." The sheer audacity of it made my skin crawl. And the more I thought about it, the more things started coming into focus. This wasn't just about the cabin. This had been brewing for years. My whole life, I've been the quiet one, the responsible one, the rock, as my mom likes to say. But being the rock comes at a cost. Everyone assumes you're fine, that you'll adjust, that you'll take the hit so others can shine. Josh, on the other hand, has always been the storm. Loud, reckless, charming, but never expected to carry any weight. I don't say that bitterly. I used to think it was just the natural order of things. But something about this cruise, the gift I'd poured myself into, the one thing I thought would be immune to the usual favoritism, made me realize how deep the imbalance ran. The day after the text, I called Mom. I needed to hear her voice. Maybe, I hoped, she didn't know about the switch. Maybe she'd be just as shocked as I was. "Hi, honey," she answered, cheery as ever. "Are you excited?" 3 more days. I cleared my throat. "Yeah, about that. Did you hear Josh and his new wife took my cabin?" There was a pause. Not long. Just enough. "Oh yes. Josh mentioned something about her having seasickness, and I figured you'd understand. You're so good with these things, Luke. Always so accommodating." That word, accommodating, landed in my chest like a lead weight. I didn't even know he remarried, Mom. "Oh, well, you know Josh. He's spontaneous. And she's very sweet. I'm sure you'll love her." "What's her name?" Another pause. "Ashley." I could hear the hesitation. She didn't even know her name off the top of her head. But somehow, she deserved my cabin more than I did. "She's not family, Mom. I've never met her. And I paid for that cabin." "You paid for the trip, Luke. That's the beautiful thing. You made this happen. And everyone's so grateful, sweetie." "I know I am." There it was again, wrapped in syrup, dipped in guilt. Be the bigger person. Smile. Nod. Let them walk over you, but feel proud you gave them the floor. I ended the call soon after, heart pounding with a mix of disbelief and rage. I needed to cool off. I took a walk, then a drive. Ended up at a diner near my place, sipping bad coffee and trying to untangle how I got here. That night, I got a group text. Josh, being Josh, had created a cruise squad group chat. First message. "Yo. Final countdown. Who's ready for the best vacation ever?" Ashley followed with, "Can't wait to meet you all. Hope you don't mind." I added some excursions, just little things. Spa day, dolphin swim, yoga class. Excursions. She added excursions. On my itinerary. Using the booking info I had organized. I checked the cruise portal, logged into the shared account I'd created for everyone to manage plans. Sure enough, several new bookings had been made. And all of them under my name. Dolphin experience? $295. Spa indulgence package? $420. Couples massage? $380. Private cabana for 2? $560. None of these had been there before. And they weren't just for her. There were other changes too. Bella and her girlfriend had been bumped to a later snorkeling group, so Ashley and Josh could have the early slot. Grandma's dinner reservation had been moved. My name was still listed as the primary guest and credit card holder. I stared at the screen, my jaw clenched so tight I thought my molars might crack. No one asked. No one even mentioned it. I texted Bella privately. "Hey, did you move your excursion time?" She replied almost instantly. "Nope. Got an email saying it was changed." Weird, right? I told her what was going on, and she immediately FaceTimed me. "You've got to be kidding," she said, her dark curls bouncing as she shook her head. "They're using your money to pamper her?" "Apparently," I said deadpan. Bella has always been the only person in the family who calls out the nonsense. She and I are close, mostly because we both know what it's like to be the less important ones in the family hierarchy. She's also hilariously blunt, which I needed in that moment. "I swear, Luke, this family treats you like a freaking concierge. If I were you, I'd cancel the whole thing." I didn't say anything, but the seed had been planted. The next day, we were all supposed to meet at the airport hotel near the port. I was arriving a day early to make sure everything was in place. When I got there, I found out from the hotel front desk that someone had tried to change the reservation name on the suite I booked for Mom and Grandma. Tried to assign it to Ashley. Let me repeat that. Ashley, a woman who had been married into the family for, 10 days, tried to hijack the suite I reserved for my mother and grandmother. I demanded to see the note, and sure enough, it had been phoned in that morning by someone claiming to be Luke's assistant. They said Ashley would be more comfortable in the bigger room, given her condition. Her condition? I stormed back to my room, seething. I needed a plan. A real one. Because this wasn't just ignorance or poor communication. This was entitlement on a whole new level. I had busted my butt to create something magical, and these people had taken it as their right to rearrange it as they pleased. That night, we had dinner at the hotel restaurant. It was the first time I saw Ashley in person. She was younger than I expected. Late 20s, maybe. Platinum blonde, surgically perfect face, dripping in designer everything. She walked into the room holding Josh's hand like she owned the air around her. "Oh my gosh, you must be Luke," she said, voice pitched like a cartoon. "You're the brother who made all this happen. Wow, you're like the MVP." She hugged me. I didn't hug back. "I hope it's okay, I made a few little upgrades," she added, laughing. "Just wanted to make it extra special for everyone." I gave her a tight smile. "Yeah, about that." But Josh clapped me on the back before I could finish. "Come on, man, don't be such a grump. It's a party. Live a little." Emily was there too. Yep. Josh invited his ex-wife to the same cruise he brought his new wife on. I found out later he told Emily that Mom insisted she come, and told Mom that Emily insisted. Manipulated both of them so he wouldn't look like the bad guy. The dinner was awkward. Grandma whispered to me at one point, "Who is that blonde woman?" I thought Emily and Josh were married. When I told her the truth, she blinked slowly and said, She's no Emily." After the meal, I stepped outside to get air. I sat on a bench and just let the cold night hit me. My phone buzzed. It was an email from the cruise line. Reminder, final payment due in 24 hours. Total remaining balance, $1,160, due to recent excursion additions. I laughed, out loud, in the middle of a hotel courtyard. A sharp, bitter laugh that tasted like metal. I didn't reply. I didn't forward it. I just sat there, staring at the stars, my brain slowly threading together every slight, every insult, every moment of blind entitlement that led to this. And I made a decision. A quiet one. A calm one. No theatrics. No warnings. I was going to cancel everything. The cruise. The excursions. The limo. The hotel transfers. Every single thing that was in my name. But not right away. No. I'd wait. I'd let them get all the way to the port. Bags packed, sunscreen applied, cocktails on their minds. And then I'd pull the plug. Because this time, I wasn't going to be accommodating. This time, they were going to learn what it felt like to be left standing at the dock, wondering how everything fell apart. It's a strange thing when you stop being surprised by betrayal. I used to think trust was like a bank account. You build it up slowly, deposit after deposit, and when something bad happens, you just hope there's enough left to cover the hit. But what I learned that week was, sometimes, the people closest to you aren't making deposits. They're forging your signature and draining the account behind your back. The night before the cruise was supposed to start, I was back in my room at the airport hotel, sitting at the desk, laptop open, cursor hovering over the cancel button. I'd already logged into the cruise portal and reviewed everything. 5 cabins, 10 passengers, 8 excursions, 2 limo services, 1 dinner show, all of it under my name, all of it paid with my card. I'd waited until the very last moment because I wanted them to feel it. I wanted them to see the ship, smell the salt air, feel the buzz in the port terminal. And then I wanted it to hit them like a freight train. None of it was real anymore. But I still hesitated. Not because I doubted they deserved it, but because of Mom. She wasn't perfect. She could be blind to the favoritism, too quick to keep the peace, instead of standing up for fairness. But she wasn't malicious. And she'd never asked me to cancel my cabin or shift plans. That was all Josh and his Barbie bride. Still, she enabled them. She let it happen. And even then, a part of me still didn't want to hurt her. I was in the middle of weighing that guilt when I heard a knock on my hotel room door. I opened it to find Bella standing there in sweats and slippers, holding a pint of ice cream like a peace offering. "I figured you'd be stewing in here," she said, walking past me without waiting for an invite. "Got us Rocky Road and passive aggression. Let's binge." She flopped onto the bed and started digging into the ice cream like she owned the place. "You're not wrong," I muttered, closing the door. We talked for a while. Well, she talked mostly. I ranted. She listened. Bella had that way of making you feel sane, even while the world was clearly upside down. And then, about 30 minutes into our conversation, she looked at her phone and froze. "Oh, my God." I looked up. "What?" She turned the screen toward me. It was a photo on Instagram. Ashley had posted it on her story. The caption read, "So grateful to my amazing husband and his generous family for making this dream cruise possible. Couldn't have done it without your support. Hashtag blessed, hashtag honeymoon vibes." The image was of her and Josh standing in front of the cruise terminal, a full day early. In the background, you could see the ship docked and waiting. They were holding champagne flutes, beaming like the cover of a vacation magazine. But that wasn't what made my stomach drop. It was the caption of the second slide. A group shot: Josh, Ashley, Uncle Ron, Aunt Maggie, Emily, and Mom. Mom, smiling next to Ashley, arm around her, holding up a little sign that said Family Cruise 2025. I stared at the screen, blinking, trying to make sense of it. My ears rang. "Wait," I said slowly. "They're there now." Bella nodded, her face pale. "They told me we were all going tomorrow," I whispered. "The check-in email says our boarding time is 11:30 a.m. tomorrow." Bella was already typing furiously on her phone. "Give me a second." I sat down hard on the edge of the bed. The room felt suddenly smaller, claustrophobic. And then Bella's phone buzzed. She read the message and looked up at me, eyes wide. "Oh, you're not gonna like this." "What now?" "It's from Maggie. She thought I was already on the ship. She said they wanted to get a head start, and that Josh arranged early boarding as a surprise for the family. Luke, they left us. You, me, Grandma, they left us behind." I felt something shift in me. Something hard and cold settled in my chest. It wasn't just disrespect anymore. It wasn't just entitlement. It was betrayal. They had used me, used my money, used my name, used my trust. And when it was convenient, they cut me out like an extra. And worse, they lied. I picked up my phone, checked my messages again. Nothing. No heads up. No, "Hey Luke, change of plans." Not even a fake excuse. Just silence. I stood up, pacing now. They knew I booked everything. They had to know I was the point of contact. How did they even get on the ship early? Bella shrugged. "Probably called the cruise line pretending to be you. Your name's on everything." That thought made my stomach churn. I grabbed my laptop again and logged into the cruise account. Password still worked. I checked the manifest. Boarded: Josh M., Ashley M., Maggie R., Ronald R., Emily M., Lisa M. Lisa. Mom. Boarded. Checked in. On the ship. Before me. Before Grandma. Before Bella and her girlfriend, who were still downstairs, blissfully unaware they'd been excluded from their own trip. "They left Grandma behind," I said out loud, my voice catching. Bella looked up, her eyes suddenly glassy. "She's 82, I whispered. "She needs help with her luggage. She takes heart medication. They left her." That's when the switch flipped. I felt it in my spine, like a light going out. Something broke in me. Not in a dramatic, movie-style scream into the sky way. More like a slow, deliberate burn. A kind of calm that only comes when you realize you're done. Not angry. Not hurt. Just done. I opened the cruise portal and started clicking. Cancel. 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 Excursions. Gone. Private dinner. Gone. Transfers. Gone. Cabins. Canceled. Refunds initiated. And then, the big one, the cruise itself. 5 cabins, 10 passengers. I hovered over the button for a moment, fingers steady. Then clicked. Canceled. A pop-up appeared. Your cancellation has been processed. Refunds will be issued to the original payment method within 5 to 7 business days. And just like that, it was over. Or so I thought. Because within 5 minutes, my phone rang. It was Josh. I let it go to voicemail. Then a text. Dude, what is going on? We can't get into our rooms. What did you do? Then Ashley. Hi, Luke. Super weird issue. The cruise line says our reservations were canceled. Haha, can you call them and fix it? Then Aunt Maggie. Sweetie, we're stuck at the check-in desk, and they said everything was canceled. Is this a mistake? Please fix this ASAP. I didn't reply. I just handed the phone to Bella. Here, I said. Read these. She scrolled through, her face a mix of satisfaction and fury. Then she looked up at me. So what now? I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. Now, I said, we let them sit there. We let them stew. And when they're good and panicked, then I'll tell them what really happened. I stood, walked over to the mini fridge, grabbed 2 bottles of water, and handed one to Bella. Here's to early boarding, I said. We clinked bottles like champagne flutes. And just as I took a sip, my phone buzzed again. A new number. No name. Just one message. Hi, Luke. This is Ashley's lawyer. We need to discuss the financial damages you may have caused by canceling the cruise. Please respond at your earliest convenience. I stared at the screen, then at Bella. Oh, she said, mouth falling open. They did not just lawyer up. I exhaled, long and slow. This wasn't over. Not even close. I didn't respond to the lawyer's message. Not at first. Not because I was scared, but because I wanted to think. Carefully. Deliberately. The moment you respond, you give them momentum. And right then, I wasn't ready to hand over anything. Not a word. Not a reaction. Not even an emoji. Instead, I sat down at the edge of the hotel bed and just stared out the window. The port was visible from our floor. White ships lined up like floating cities, people streaming toward them like ants marching to paradise. Somewhere on that dock, my family was unraveling. Somewhere in that crowd, my brother and his new wife were yelling at customer service reps, waving their arms, pulling out phones, trying to get answers. I imagined Mom standing awkwardly nearby, clutching her purse, unsure what to say. Emily probably just watched the drama unfold with that tired half-smile she always had when Josh pulled another stunt. And me? I sat quietly in my room, watching the chaos I'd triggered from a distance. You'd think that would feel like a victory, but it didn't. It felt like grief. And that surprised me, because for all the betrayal, the lies, the manipulation, I still loved them. I didn't want revenge. Not really. I just wanted respect. Acknowledgement. Maybe even an apology. But those things weren't coming. And deep down, I knew that now. Bella was gone by then. She'd gone downstairs to update Grandma and her girlfriend. I asked her to give me a little space. She understood. She always did. For a while, I just sat there. And then I cried. Not loud. Not messy. Just slow, silent tears that came in waves I couldn't stop. It wasn't one thing. It was everything. The years of being the dependable one. The invisible one. The guy who made things work so other people could shine. And when I finally tried to give something beautiful, they took it, twisted it, and tossed me aside like a placeholder. I thought about the time I got promoted and Mom skipped my celebration dinner because Josh had a last-minute poker night, and she didn't want him to feel left out. I remembered the year I paid off her car loan in full for Christmas, and she gave Josh the exact same amount in cash, because it's only fair. The way she always said, Josh just needs a little more support than you, honey. You're so self-sufficient. They weren't words meant to hurt, but they added up. And this cruise was just the final ledger entry. Around 6 p.m., there was a knock at my door. I didn't move. The knock came again, softer this time. Luke, it was Bella. You okay? I wiped my face with my sleeve and stood up, composing myself. Yeah, I called. 1 second. I opened the door. She looked at me carefully, then stepped inside and closed it behind her. Grandma's heartbroken, she said. She didn't know they'd left early. She said, they didn't even tell me goodbye. My chest tightened. Are they still at the port? She nodded. Yup, still trying to get back on. Security escorted them out of the check-in area once it was clear they didn't have valid boarding passes. Ashley threw a fit. Josh tried yelling at some manager. Maggie cried. It was a circus. And Mom. Bella hesitated. She didn't say much. Just kept asking where you were. I don't think she realized you canceled it. I think she thought the cruise line made a mistake. I rubbed my temples. Great. Bella pulled out her phone. They're texting me now? All of them. Wanting to know where you are. Asking if this was some kind of misunderstanding. I almost laughed. A misunderstanding? She gave me a look. I didn't correct them. Yet. I sat down on the bed again. I don't know what to do anymore, I said. Bella sat beside me, her tone softer. You don't have to do anything. You already did everything. And they still found a way to make you the villain. We sat in silence for a while. Eventually, she stood up. I'm gonna order pizza. You want anything? Just surprise me, I said. She nodded and left. I stayed there a while longer, staring at my phone. Dozens of texts. Missed calls. A couple of voicemails. All of them pinging like a symphony of guilt. But one message stood out. It was from Mom. Luke, honey, I don't know what's happening. Everyone's saying you canceled the cruise. Please tell me that's not true. I'm so confused. Call me. I didn't know how to respond. I didn't even know if I should respond. But I tapped out a message anyway. I'll explain everything soon. But not tonight. Then I turned my phone off and tossed it across the bed. That night, I barely ate. Bella brought me pizza, pepperoni and mushrooms, my favorite, but it went cold on the plate while I sat with my thoughts. Around midnight, I went for a walk. The hotel lobby was quiet, save for a sleepy clerk half-watching a muted news broadcast. I stepped outside, into the cool coastal air. The stars were bright. The cruise ships were still docked, glowing like floating hotels. Somewhere on one of those decks, a wedding party was taking photos. Laughter echoed from the docks. That was supposed to be our laughter. I walked along the edge of the hotel property, eventually finding a quiet bench overlooking the water. I sat there a long time, hands in my pockets, breathing in the salty air. And that's when I started planning. Not revenge. Not anymore. Something else. Something freeing. I'd spent so much of my life trying to earn love from people who only loved what I could do for them, who treated my kindness like currency and expected discounts. But now, I was done being their concierge, done paying for attention, done showing up just to be background noise in someone else's spotlight. I didn't know exactly what I would do next, but I knew I wasn't going back to how things were. No more group texts. No more rescuing their plans. No more covering the bills to keep the peace. I would explain myself, once. Calmly. Clearly. And then I'd step back. Let the golden child carry his own weight for once. Let Mom see what happens when the self-sufficient one actually leaves. Let them all figure out who they are without my silent scaffolding. The cruise was gone. The money? Refundable. The relationships? Fractured. But maybe, for the first time in years, I wasn't. Maybe this was the moment I stopped trying to prove my worth to people who never questioned his. Maybe this was the moment I took back my life. And as I sat on that bench under the stars, the ocean breeze in my face, I made myself a quiet promise. The next time I planned a trip, it would be for me. Not for a mother who couldn't say no to her favorite. Not for a brother who only called when he needed something. Not for a family who called my boundaries moodiness. No, for me. And maybe, just maybe, for the people who actually saw me. I stood up, hands still in my pockets, and turned to walk back to the hotel. I didn't feel better yet, but I felt clear. And that was enough for now. What I didn't know, though, was that the next morning would bring something I never expected. A confrontation. Face to face. On hotel property. With all of them. The confrontation came faster than I expected. It started with a knock. Not gentle. Not polite. A hard, rapid thud at my hotel door at 7:43 a.m. I'd been up since 6. I was already dressed, sitting at the tiny desk in my room with a coffee I'd brewed from one of those pod machines. I wasn't anxious. Not anymore. I felt strangely calm, like I was standing on a cliff, the wind rushing against my face, knowing I'd already made the leap. I opened the door. Josh stood there, shirt wrinkled, eyes bloodshot, a tight-jawed expression that fell somewhere between rage and desperation. Behind him, Ashley paced in heels way too tall for 7 a.m., phone in one hand, the other gesturing wildly at someone behind the corner. Mom stood just a few feet back, arms crossed, looking smaller than usual. Not sad, not angry, just uncertain. Behind them all was Aunt Maggie, arms folded, hovering like a backup singer waiting for her cue. I leaned against the doorframe, coffee in hand. Well, I said, looks like the gang's all here. Luke, Mom started, stepping forward, but Josh raised a hand. No, I'll speak. He looked terrible. His usual tan was fading. His hair wasn't styled. He looked like someone who had expected to spend the morning sunbathing on the Lido deck and instead got thrown off the set of a reality show. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" he asked. I took a sip of my coffee. "You're going to have to narrow that down. Don't play games, man. You canceled the cruise. All of it. The excursions. The rooms. Everything. We were standing at the gate. Do you know how humiliating that was?" I tilted my head. "Did they let you keep the complimentary lanyards at least?" Ashley huffed behind him. "This isn't funny, Luke." I looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time. Designer shades, full face of makeup before 8 a.m., nails so glossy they reflected the hallway lights. I barely knew this woman, and yet she'd bulldozed through a plan I spent 6 months building. "No," I said. "It's not funny. You're right. What's funny is thinking you could walk into a trip I paid for, rearrange everything to suit yourself, and then act shocked when the person funding the whole circus decides to shut it down." Josh stepped forward, and for a second, I thought he might actually take a swing. But he stopped himself. "You've always been jealous," he spat. "Always. That's the truth, isn't it?" I blinked. "Jealous? Of you?" His voice rose. "You've always hated that Mom loves me more." Mom opened her mouth to protest, but he cut her off. "No, let's say it. He thinks he's better than me. Just because he plans stuff, keeps receipts, follows rules. He thinks that makes him a better son." Ashley mumbled. "We should call the lawyer." I laughed. I couldn't help it. "You called a lawyer because I canceled my own vacation?" "We had plans," she snapped. "You made financial commitments. People relied on you. And I relied on you to respect me." I shot back. "You didn't." End of story. Mom stepped forward again, this time placing a hand on Josh's arm to pull him back. "Luke," she said softly, "you didn't even give me a chance to explain." I finally turned to her fully. "Explain what? That you left early? That you didn't think twice about boarding that ship without Grandma, Bella, or me? That you smiled in photos while I sat here, realizing just how invisible I really am to this family?" Her eyes glistened. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't know they changed the boarding." I believed her, but that didn't change what I needed to do next. "I love you, Mom," I said, "but I'm done." Her brow furrowed. "Done? I'm done being the glue, the planner, the fixer. I'm done paying for loyalty." Ashley scoffed. "You're being dramatic." Josh shook his head. "You'll regret this. You think cutting us off makes you noble? It makes you selfish." I smiled. "Good. About time I tried it." And with that, I stepped back into my room and shut the door. It was done. The following weeks were quiet. No one reached out. Well, no one except Bella. She came over the next weekend with Thai takeout and zero judgment. Grandma called me too, once she'd made it back home safely. We talked for an hour about gardening, heart pills, and the sudden price of avocados. She didn't mention the cruise. Neither did I. But when we hung up, she said, "Proud of you, kiddo." And that meant something. I returned to work the next Monday. Threw myself into projects. Joined a new gym. I cut out the family group chat completely. Left without fanfare. Just hit the leave group button and muted the fallout. It was like lifting a 1,000-pound weight off my shoulders. At first, I expected guilt. But it never came. Instead, something else happened. I started saying no. And not just to my family. To coworkers who always dumped last-minute tasks on me because they knew I wouldn't complain. To friends who only called when they needed help moving or fixing their Wi-Fi. To acquaintances who invited me to dinner but always forgot their wallets. The more I said no, the more space I made for people who said yes to me. A few weeks later, something wild happened. I posted about the canceled cruise, just a short version, on a Reddit thread about family boundaries. It blew up. Thousands of upvotes. DMs. People saying, "You did the right thing." A few even said, "You inspired me to stand up to my family too." That response hit me harder than I expected. So I wrote a blog post, just for myself at first. Titled it, "When Kindness Becomes Currency, Why I Canceled My Family Vacation." I shared the link on Twitter and forgot about it. 3 days later, it had 12,000 views. Then 40,000. By the end of the week, I got an email from a podcast producer who wanted to interview me about boundaries, burnout, and being the designated fixer in dysfunctional families. I almost said no, but then I thought, why not? So I did the interview. Then another, and another. Suddenly I was on a dozen podcasts, talking about emotional labor, the invisible weight of being the strong one, and what happens when you finally step away from people who only love the version of you that serves them. I got emails from therapists, messages from strangers. A teacher in Ohio said she printed my post and used it in her high school writing class. It was surreal, but it also made sense. Because for the first time in my life, people were listening to me. Not to what I could do for them, not to what I could fix, just me. One night, about a month after the cruise that never was, I got an email from a startup founder in Seattle. He'd read my blog and said my story hit close to home. He wanted to know if I'd be interested in consulting on a project he was building, something about mental load tracking and shared responsibility in families. An app, a community platform. It wasn't the kind of thing I normally did, but I agreed to a video call. 2 weeks later, I signed a contract. 6 months later, I had a small equity stake in something I actually believed in. And I wasn't doing it for Josh, or Mom, or anyone else. I was doing it for me. For the Luke who used to carry every burden quietly. For the Luke who thought being useful was the same as being loved. For the Luke who finally learned to walk away. And yet, just when I thought I had peace, something happened. An envelope showed up at my apartment. No return address. Inside was a wedding invitation. Embossed. Expensive. Cream-colored. You are cordially invited to celebrate the wedding of Joshua Michael Monroe and Ashley Rose Monroe. It was dated 6 months after the cruise. And on the back, written in blue ink, was a note. Hope you can make it this time. No hard feelings. Bring a +1. We booked you a suite. No apology. No acknowledgement. Just a silent dare. And suddenly, all that calm I'd built, it started to crack. Because this time, they weren't just expecting me to show up. They were expecting me to fund the forgiveness. To play my old role again. To pretend nothing happened. And as I stared at that invitation, my phone buzzed. It was Bella. You get one too? Yep. You going? I stared at the screen for a long time. And then I started to type. Because this time, the answer wasn't so simple. And what I decided next would change everything. I didn't answer Bella's text right away. I just stared at the wedding invitation, still sitting on my coffee table like a loaded weapon. The audacity was breathtaking. 6 months had passed since the cruise debacle. 6 months of silence, zero contact, not even a birthday text. And now they wanted me at their wedding? With a +1? And they booked me a suite? They actually thought I'd come strolling in like nothing had happened. Wear a suit, shake hands, maybe even raise a glass to the happy couple. As if I hadn't canceled their fantasy honeymoon out from under them. As if they didn't try to sue me for it afterward. I didn't forget the lawyer text. I never responded, and nothing ever came of it. I think they were bluffing, trying to scare me into reversing the cancellations. When it didn't work, they dropped it. But that text was the line in the sand. The moment they made it clear, they didn't just disrespect me. They saw me as a resource to extract, a bank account with arms. And now, they wanted me back. Not because they missed me, not because they were sorry. Because they needed me. I could feel it. So, I started digging. The setup begins. First, I found the wedding website. Ashley, of course, had created an elaborate site filled with pastel filters, cursive fonts, and paragraphs of nauseating backstory about how she and Josh manifested each other during a healing season. I scrolled through, trying not to gag. The wedding was scheduled for a private estate outside Napa Valley. A vineyard rental that cost at least $20,000 for the weekend. Lavish, high-end, influencer-level stuff. They had a hashtag Monroe's Manifested. The guest list wasn't posted publicly, but there was an RSVP portal. I entered my name and the provided invite code, looked Plusone, and got access to the full itinerary. 3-day event, welcome brunch, vineyard tour, rehearsal dinner, ceremony, post-wedding brunch. And then something caught my eye. Under registry, there was a line I couldn't ignore. For those who wish to support our dream honeymoon, please contribute to our travel fund. I clicked. They had a GoFundMe set up for their honeymoon. I blinked. After everything, they were crowdfunding a trip? I scrolled through the page. It was full of photos of tropical beaches, infinity pools, quotes about deserved luxury, and a big, bold message that read, "As you know, our original honeymoon plans were unexpectedly canceled due to a clerical issue. This time, we're doing things right, and we'd love your help." Clerical issue? That was what they were calling it now? Even worse, I noticed several family members had already donated. Uncle Ron sent $200. Aunt Maggie, $500. A few others chipped in. The fund was at $4,300 out of a $10,000 goal. I felt a familiar tightness in my chest. A mixture of secondhand embarrassment and fresh rage. They were trying to get strangers and relatives to pay for a luxury honeymoon. Because I wouldn't? Oh no. I started asking questions. Quietly. First, I reached out to Bella. She answered instantly. They sent me the invite, too, she texted. I laughed out loud. You going? I asked. Not unless I get paid to bartend. Then I called Grandma. She hadn't received an invitation. I guess I'm not Instagrammable enough, she said dryly. Then, after a pause, but I heard from Lisa. She said you might go? I frowned. Mom said that. She thinks it'll be good for the family. A chance to heal. I sighed. Did she ever talk to you about what happened? The cruise. Grandma was quiet for a second. She said you overreacted. That maybe you needed time to cool off. That stung. But I didn't have time to unpack it. Because what Grandma said next changed everything. They're having some money trouble, you know. My ears perked. What kind of trouble? Well, she said slowly. Lisa told me Josh had taken out a personal loan for a business idea. Something about flipping rental properties. But it didn't work out. She said they were behind on payments. I felt the pieces start clicking into place. The wedding. The honeymoon fund. The sudden invite, after 6 months of silence. They didn't want reconciliation. They wanted a sponsor. Me. The guy who'd funded the cruise. The guy who always bailed them out. They thought I'd feel guilty enough to pony up one more time. And the worst part? Mom was helping them. Planning the play. I spent the next week researching. I found public property records that confirmed what Grandma said. Josh had indeed purchased 2 small properties through a shady LLC, Monroe Ventures LLC, about 8 months ago. Both were foreclosed within 5 months. He'd overleveraged them using high-interest loans. I found liens. I found unpaid contractor invoices. I even found one court filing, a debt collection suit filed by a roofing company for $11,200. It was all public record. A mess. Ashley's Instagram, though, told a different story. Filtered sunsets. Designer dresses. Brunches with captions like, manifest your lifestyle dizzy. She was building a brand. A fake one. And the wedding was the center of it. That's when I knew exactly what I was going to do. I wasn't just going to decline the invitation. I was going to accept it. The position of power. I RSVP'd yes. I selected will attend all events. I even put +1 attending. Then I messaged Bella. Want to be my +1 to a very fake wedding? Yes. Do I get to wear black and make snide comments? Absolutely. I also messaged an old college friend named Natalie. She worked in digital PR, specializing in influencer fraud, shady crowdfunding, and fake luxury lifestyle brands. I told her about Ashley's honeymoon fund and the questionable messaging. She laughed for a solid minute. You want me to do a background check? She asked. Deeper, I said. I want receipts. Real ones. Anything that proves they're lying to people. She got to work. 3 days later, she sent me a report. It wasn't huge, but it was enough. Ashley had edited her crowdfunding page multiple times. Originally, it listed very specific luxury items. Overwater bungalow at 6 Senses Maldives, private seaplane charter, luxury spa retreat in Santorini. These were scrubbed and replaced with vaguer phrases like romantic trip abroad once the fundraiser stalled. One donor had requested a refund via the platform, citing misrepresentation of intent. Another had left a public comment asking why Ashley was wearing a $1,200 Balenciaga jacket while asking for donations. Natalie even dug up a Reddit thread, buried deep, where someone had linked Ashley's wedding site, pointing out the disconnect between her luxury lifestyle and the GoFundMe. It was all there. Not enough to ruin them, but enough to pull a string. And that's what I planned to do. The night before the wedding weekend, Bella and I met for dinner. She wore a sleek black dress and combat boots. I wore a navy suit, no tie. We looked like hitmen attending a garden party. Over pasta and wine, I laid out everything I'd found. The debts, the fake crowdfunding, the luxury branding scam, and my plan. She leaned back in her chair when I finished. Dude, she said, blinking. You're terrifying. Thank you, I said. You're actually going? I nodded. I'm not going to make a scene. I'm not going to yell. Then what? I'm going to let them talk. I'll smile. I'll shake hands. I'll listen to every lie they tell me. And then I'll give them a gift. Bella raised an eyebrow. What kind of gift? I grinned. Oh, just something they'll never forget. Because now I had everything I needed. The money trail. The lies. The desperate debt. and the full attention of the bride and groom. They thought I was coming to make peace. But what I was really bringing was the match. And all they'd done for the past year was pile up the kindling. The fire was coming. But first, I was going to let them light it themselves. The wedding weekend arrived in full California sunshine. Bella and I pulled up to the Vineyard Estate in a rented black Audi convertible. Her idea, obviously. The place was absurdly picturesque. Rolling hills of vines, cream-colored stone buildings, waitstaff in matching white shirts directing cars to valet. It was all curated to perfection. Exactly the kind of place Ashley would have picked to crown herself queen of a new social circle. I stepped out of the car in a dark tailored suit, classic and understated. Bella, in a sleek, off-shoulder black dress with gold hoops and sunglasses, looked like she could walk into a Vogue shoot and not miss a beat. We were overdressed for a welcome brunch. On purpose. Ashley spotted us immediately from across the courtyard. She waved with 2 fingers, like royalty greeting subjects. Josh was beside her in salmon shorts and a linen shirt unbuttoned halfway down. His eyes met mine for just a second before flicking away. Good. He was nervous. The first day was all surface smiles. Hugs. Small talk. People awkwardly asking, "So, are you two?" while glancing between Bella and me. We played along. We laughed. We toasted mimosas. But I was watching. Every detail. I saw how Ashley flitted between guests like a performer on a tight schedule, checking that everyone was posting photos, that the hashtag was being used, that the branded cocktail napkins were on display. I saw Josh pull aside Aunt Maggie and whisper something, glancing toward me. Her eyes followed his, then darted away. I caught a moment where my mother approached me on the patio with a hopeful smile. "You look good, sweetie," she said. I thanked her. We didn't talk about the cruise. She didn't mention the wedding invitation or the silence that had stretched between us for half a year. We just stood in the sun, pretending. That night was the rehearsal dinner, held in a rustic barn decked out with string lights, wood-paneled charm, and a suspicious number of candid photo ops. A professional videographer followed Ashley around like she was on a reality show. I kept quiet, observed, let them forget I was anything but a silent accessory to the evening. Then came the speeches. Ashley's father, who had clearly been looped in at the last minute and mispronounced Monroe twice, gave a rambling toast. Josh followed with a speech about finding love again and taking bold leaps. And then, to my shock, Ashley handed me the mic. "Luke," she chirped, "you've been so instrumental to our family, and we're just so happy you're here. Would you say a few words?" Bella gripped my knee under the table. I smiled, stood slowly, and took the microphone. "Sure," I said. "Why not?" The room quieted. Phones tilted toward me. Josh looked like he wanted to melt into the floor. I took a breath. "Well, I'm honored to be here," I said. "This is a beautiful place. You've built something special. And weddings are about beginnings. About clarity. About truth." A few people nodded. Ashley beamed. I continued. "I've watched Josh grow up. Watched him fall in love. More than once, actually." A few awkward chuckles. "And one thing I've always admired about him is his ability to bounce back." I paused. "He's resilient. Even when things fall apart, business ventures, relationships, travel plans, he finds a way to spin it." Josh's jaw tightened. Ashley shifted in her seat. And Ashley, well, Ashley's a visionary. Not everyone can take a canceled cruise, turn it into a crowdfunding campaign, and spin it into a brand. Now there was dead silence. She really inspired me. So much so that I actually did a little research. Just out of curiosity, of course. I mean, we all know Ashley's a girl boss, but I had no idea how creative she could be. I pulled a folded paper from my jacket pocket. The unexpected clerical issue that canceled their original honeymoon? Actually, the cancellation was fully intentional. Initiated by me. Because the trip was paid for entirely by me, and certain people decided to reassign my room without permission. Funny how that works, right? Now I was pacing slowly. I also found out that the fundraiser mentioned they were going to the Maldives, then Santorini. Then it became a vague, romantic trip abroad. Bit of a moving target, huh? Ashley was frozen. Josh stood up. "That's enough," he said, low and sharp. But I held up a hand. "Don't worry, I'm wrapping up." I turned to the guests. Weddings are about starting with truth. So I figured I'd offer some. No hard feelings. No drama. Just clarity. I held up the page. In my hand is a packet of public records. Josh's property ventures. Lawsuits. Ashley's edited fundraiser timeline. The refund requests. The receipts. Gasps. But I'm not here to ruin your wedding. I'm here to attend it. Because I RSVP'd. Because I'm a man of my word. I folded the paper again, tucked it back in my jacket. Just wanted to make sure you all knew the real story. You deserve to. And with that, I handed the mic back to the stunned event coordinator, grabbed Bella's hand, and walked calmly out of the barn. We didn't run. We didn't need to. The damage was done. Controlled detonation. We didn't stay for the wedding day. We checked out of the estate that night and drove into San Francisco. Got sushi. Walked by the marina. Talked about anything but family. But my phone, it exploded. Texts from Josh. From Ashley. From Mom. From Aunt Maggie. Even from people I didn't know were attending. Josh's texts were furious. Caps lock. Threats. More, you'll regret this. Ashley's were worse. Voice notes, 6 minutes long, crying about how I humiliated her, how I sabotaged her dream, and made her look like a liar in front of influencers. Mom called 3 times. I answered on the 4th. You humiliated them, she said. I was calm. No, Mom. I told the truth. If that humiliated them, maybe they needed to be. She was quiet. Then, you didn't have to make it public. They invited me publicly. They used me publicly. They lied to everyone publicly. She didn't respond. So I did. I'm done, Mom. I'm not angry. I'm not seeking revenge anymore. I just wanted out. And now I'm out. Then I hung up. The aftermath. I blocked Josh and Ashley. I never heard from Aunt Maggie again. But a funny thing happened a few weeks later. A DM popped up on my blog inbox. It was from a guest at the wedding. A guy named Terrence, apparently a cousin on Ashley's side. Hey man, just wanted to say thanks. That was the realest thing I've seen at a wedding. Totally changed how I see my own family. Hope you're doing well. He wasn't the only one. I got dozens of similar messages. People cheering, thanking me. Some even offering to tell their own stories. I started compiling them. With Bella's help, I launched a little newsletter, Exit Strategy, stories about breaking cycles, cutting ties, and choosing freedom. Within a month, it had 10,000 subscribers. 6 months later, I was speaking on panels about emotional labor, boundary setting, and healing from toxic family dynamics. And the best part? I never spent another dime on people who didn't see my value. I'd love to say Josh learned something. That Ashley apologized. That Mom came around. But this isn't a fairy tale. Sometimes, you don't get the apology. Sometimes, you don't get the closure. You just get free. And that was worth every penny I ever spent. The fallout wasn't immediate. Like most things in our family, it came in waves, slow, messy, and louder than it needed to be. After the wedding weekend, Josh and Ashley went radio silent. No surprise there. I'd humiliated them. On their turf, in front of their friends, their influencers, their carefully cultivated audience. And worse, I hadn't screamed or thrown drinks. I hadn't made a scene. I just calmly told the truth. Truth doesn't need volume. What it needs is ears. And as it turns out, plenty of people were listening. Ashley's downfall. The first public crack appeared on Instagram. A post from one of her influencer friends went viral on a niche gossip forum. A screenshot of Ashley sobbing during the rehearsal dinner, captioned with a side-eye emoji, and apparently scamming your own wedding guests isn't part of the vibe. It snowballed from there. A few of her backers, people who had donated to the honeymoon GoFundMe, started asking for refunds. One even left a comment saying, "Didn't you already go on a cruise and lie about it?" Ashley deleted the entire post within 24 hours, but not before someone archived it. Her follower count dropped. Not dramatically, but enough to notice. Then she made the mistake of addressing it. She posted a heavily filtered Instagram story, tearfully explaining that certain family members had twisted facts and that people were weaponizing misunderstandings to ruin her most special day. She called me a jealous sibling and said the internet was toxic and cruel. But that backfired, too. One of her former bridesmaids, someone I didn't even know, posted a TikTok calmly explaining what had happened. She talked about the luxury GoFundMe, the edited captions, the fact that Ashley excluded Grandma from the wedding and never apologized, and the stunt with my cruise cabin. It got over 2 million views. Ashley's brand crumbled. Not overnight, but enough that her sponsorships dried up. A fashion boutique dropped her. A skincare company quietly removed her from their ambassador page. I didn't do any of that. I just lit the match. She spent the next several months trying to rebrand. She moved from luxury to authentic self-care, then to spiritual wellness. But the engagement never came back. The wedding photos barely got traction. And eventually, she went private. Not long after, the honeymoon fund page was shut down. Current total raised $5,012.75. No trip ever happened. Josh's spiral. Josh tried to go underground. He deleted his Facebook, locked his LinkedIn, and stopped answering texts. But bad business doesn't disappear just because you hide. The roofing company that had filed suit, they won in small claims court. Then came another creditor, someone from his failed Airbnb flip. Apparently, Josh had promised a guaranteed return on an investment, but the house had been foreclosed before he made a single payment. The guy filed a fraud claim. Josh settled privately, but word got around. People started ghosting him. His reputation was shot. No one wanted to go into business with him, not even casually. I heard through the grapevine that he was working a sales job for a startup in Sacramento, back to commissions and cold calls. He hadn't done that kind of work since his 20s. And the marriage? It lasted 11 months. Ashley left when the last credit card got declined, and she realized she'd bet her entire influencer future on a man with great hair and no foundation. She posted a breakup video. One of those vague, ethereal things with piano music and candles. Sometimes, she whispered, you grow faster than the people you love. She turned the comments off. My mom was the hardest part. She kept trying to hold it together, act like everything was fine. She'd call every few weeks, leave me voicemails about the weather, about her neighbor's cat, about how everyone's still adjusting. But I didn't answer. I wasn't angry anymore. I was just done. We finally talked one afternoon in late spring. She came to my apartment unannounced. I almost didn't open the door. But then I saw her through the peephole, standing there with a plastic container of lemon bars and a look in her eyes I hadn't seen in years. We sat on my couch. She talked. I listened. She cried. I didn't. She said she never meant for it to go this far. That she thought Josh just needed time. That she believed Ashley when she said I was okay with the cabin thing. That she hadn't realized the scale of the lies until she saw the wedding unravel in real time. I wanted peace, she said, voice shaking. But I didn't realize peace isn't the same as fairness. I nodded. I thought you were strong enough to take the hits, she whispered. And maybe that was selfish. It was the closest thing to an apology I'd ever get from her. I didn't hug her, but I didn't ask her to leave, either. And that was enough for now. A new chapter. A year after the cruise that never was, I booked a different trip. Same destination, Caribbean. But this time, it was just me, Bella, Grandma, and Bella's girlfriend. We booked ocean view suites. We snorkeled. We danced on the deck. We ate ridiculous amounts of food. Grandma drank 2 piña coladas and called the bartender a spicy young man. Bella posted a photo of us with the caption, "No drama, just healing." And for the first time in years, I felt whole. Not because I'd won, not because they suffered, but because I'd finally stopped shrinking myself to keep the peace. Because I chose peace for me. Because I finally realized that boundaries aren't walls. They're doors. And I had locked mine from the inside. Final line. And as I stood on the ship's railing that final night, wind in my face, laughter behind me, and not a single person asking me to pay their tab, I knew, with absolute clarity, I wasn't the villain in their story. I was just the first one to walk out of the circus and burn the tent behind me.